I have to start with some boring stuff, formal stuff. My boss told me to start with a disclaimer that anything I say represents my personal view. So sorry for that. It was a must-have, and other than that, I had to apply for a review and all these kind of things. Yeah, this talk was born, at least the basic idea, was born a long, long time ago. Everyone who knows me knows that I drive a lot, and probably you know if you drive a lot in a big city, you aren't really driving. Most of the time, you're stuck in a traffic jam. So you have a couple of options, like listen to radio stations, which I don't like, or your own music playlist, which I don't like it either. Or you have option number 3, that's what many people opt for, discuss road incidents with fellow drivers. And you know how it goes. Usually you use a simple sentence which starts with an F and ends with a U, and you just combine it. Obviously, as I'm a geek, I opted for option number 4, which is thinking, which might sound a little weird from someone else, but I'm a geek, so it's not surprising. So I was driving my car, and I was going to home, and out of the blue, the collision detection system triggered an emergency brake. No car in front of me, I was passing by a car, but that's it. And I almost got a heart attack, It's supposed to save my life. It's an assistance system, not kill me. So I started to think. Then these days, I receive daily cybersecurity briefings each and every day. I work for a bank, so they are scared about data being compromised and all this kind of stuff. And I was surprised that we have so many large incidents each and every day. And I started to think about that something must be wrong here. We have invented loads of good things, agile testing, and these dudes are talking about AI and ML and all these kind of things, but it seems like they doesn't seem to help or work. And then I visited a couple of conferences and talked to many people, and some of them claimed, software testing, the software industry is dead. And the first thing came into my mind was this scene from the Terminator movie when the Terminator steps on the skull. And if that was software testing, oh my gosh, that must have been hurt, right? And it's really that, so we can go home. But I think this is not the case. I think there's a way to implement those great ideas better and make them work. And basically, that was the idea why I wanted to talk about this topic, how to make innovation work, because I thought we just don't benefit of them at all. So I've collected a couple of points, actually 6 points altogether. I started first, human versus machines. And I think it clicks with the main theme of the conference pretty much. I'm an engineer. I love technology. You also like technology, I think. I like to solve problems with a piece of software. And even more importantly, some super sophisticated, super complex software, right? What I want to talk about now is maybe there are non-tech related issues that we still try to solve with some sort of technology. I don't know if you can, if this name rings a bell, Melvin Conway, and he's got a law. Basically, it's about that the software architecture of yours reflects the communication structures of your company. I have created my own law. You can reference it if you wish. You can tweet it. Basically, this is my first law that inabilities and incompetence usually leads to organizational defects. I'm going to explain it further. And this whole thing leads to process and quality issues at the end. So what I'm trying to say that maybe, in many cases, all this started with some sort of human weakness, human issues, and I'm going to give you some examples. But before, I'm going to show you my second law. It's a little bit provocative, that the abilities and the competence of a leader of the pack limits the group's overall performance. So what I'm trying to say here, that you may have the best stuff on the team, the most talented, the most skilled persons, but if you have a bad leader, their performance will be heavily affected. So I'm going to give you 3 examples. And what I want from you is to think about if the problems you think attack problem is really an attack problem or just a result of something human-related. So, number one, it's a true story, anonymized. I'm not going to tell you which company I'm talking about. Let's say they opened their first office in Europe. Then, as they were successful, they expanded their operations to the Americas, US, Brazil. At this point, the management started to feel a bit of fear that they will lose control of everything. So they have implemented a full command and control system, and they manage everything from the HQ. This has led to different kind of communication problems, delayed decisions, improper decisions, and at the end, this whole thing led to requirement problems and testing problems. So if you join this company at this point, you would think they have some sort of testing problems. But indeed, all this started with a simple feeling called fear. And it's a true story. Second one. Let's say we have the smartest corporations, and we have 5 good-looking guys. It's up to the ladies to decide. And they have found a startup, And they have opened their first office in a garage, just like many did back in the 70s and 80s in the US. And they were all devs, They were super smart and maybe a little bit overconfident, So they said, we don't need testers. We don't need project managers. We don't need product owners. We don't need anybody else. We are good. Guess what happened? They started to grow and started to feel the pain of not having anybody else, just devs. But they were still so super confident, they thought, we don't need them. But someone, an advisor, told them, let's have some testers. Guess what they did? So instead of hiring the most lethal weapon on planet Earth, the Terminator, they went for Wally and his little friend because they were on sale, And it's a true story. Basically, they have hired carpenters, plumbers, do the testing, And you can guess how this whole experiment ended up. Like this. Angry customers. And after that, at one point, one super bright senior manager came up with a super idea, let's outsource software testing. Because we are experts of software testing, we aren't really good at software testing, so let's outsource it. This dude is on my Darwin Award list, let's be frank. And if you think it's a unique thing, this happened once in the history. I have a couple of friends who told me the same story. So it's quite a generic things that companies may end up saying that let's outsource software testing. Number 3, some other SWAT dudes, they have started a company and they said what we need is freedom, complete freedom. So you can do whatever you want, you can use whatever to use, you can use whatever language you want, and you can guess how this ended up. Everyone did it on his own way, right? Developers changed the API randomly, completely randomly, each day, each week. So this led to significant test automation maintenance costs, right? Cool. But this wasn't the end, because at the end, as this company was led by devs, they thought that the problem is with software testing, and the test engineers who were unable to design a proper test automation harness. I wanted to bring up these examples to show you that I think it's worth to think about. If you have a problem, which seems to be a tech problem, try to trace it back and figure out what the root cause is. I'm not saying don't use technology to mitigate part of the risk, but I'm telling you, if you don't fix those issues, probably you won't be able to implement big changes. Number 2, I brought this example. Actually, it says that Agile intro experiences, but it has nothing really to do with Agile. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to read it through the top 4 reasons why Agile intros fail. And I think the biggest surprise I don't see any mention of Agile. So something must be wrong here, right? The top one is company culture. And you may ask yourself that, why does it matter? I'm going to tell you a story. Once I talked to a couple of Japanese dudes, and they are completely control freak. Just tell them to form a Scrum team and give them freedom. Guess what they would say? So company culture could be a deal breaker, I think. Number two, inexperience in software engineering. I think it's a problem because some people think, even though they were not able to implement a proper V or proper waterfall, they're going to be able to implement a decent Agile. I don't know why. Then lack of management support and also resistance. I have to tell you that people usually resist for some reason. Either they don't like it, the change, or they aren't interested in for political reasons. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. The first one, do you think that we need culture changes in parallel with tech changes? I think I've already answered it. Yes, we do need it. What do you think, on a 1 to 10 scale, how difficult it is to change a company's DNA, the company culture, 1 to 10? I think it's 100 at least. Just give a try. If you have a completely different culture, what's needed for Agile, it's almost impossible, right? Question, when will an organization change? I think there's a simple answer. Because it's comprised of people, when they will change, right? What makes people to change or give up habits, give up smoking? Probably you have experiences with that, right? It's difficult. You need a fucking shock, right? So don't expect companies radically change unless there's a shock, a crisis, a trigger. Don't expect them. They may imitate, I'm going to introduce Agile because that's the trend. But radical changes, in most of the time, I'm not talking about Tariq's company, because they are, I think, quite exceptional, because they spend on innovation. Most companies spend only on firefighting, and that's it. Let's see the number 3, readiness. I brought you, this is the CMMI model. I don't know if you know, it's the maturity model, and it defines 5 levels of maturity. So basically, it measures how good you are in software engineering. And the first level, initial, is basically about you do ad hoc things, you know? And the 5th on the top represents when you are super good, and all you do is just fine-tuning your processes. Just guess how good your odds are if you would like to jump from initial to optimizing. And I'm asking people, why do they jump on implementing some new thing they have heard about without being ready for that? And it's quite a common mistake. I work for a company, they have implemented a quite advanced V. Then they jumped on and tried to implement Agile. First time, fail. Second time, they were quite confident, fail again. Third time, I have no information. So I think readiness is important. Ask yourself, I mean, cool stuff, AI, ML, but if you have more fundamental issues, then I think Tariq would also agree, AI won't help you if you have extremely basic problems. LAR poor LAR or tech poor tech. I think it's pretty cool because we are engineers, so we love technology, right? So I talked to many people, and when you know we had this Agile hype, and asked them, what do you do? Oh, we do an Agile Transformation. Why do you do? And how do you do? We don't know. We just do it because we heard about it at the conference, so it was cool. We were told it's cool, so we do it. I don't know if you recognize this model. It's plan, do, check, act. It's a continuous improvement model. Basically, it emphasizes that first, we figure out what's wrong during planning. We create a plan, how we are going to fix the problem, then fix the problem during the do phase. Then we check if we were successful and act. Keep it going. And what do you think? What most companies skips before introducing any kind of new strategy, new policy, new ways of working, new tool? Planning. oh my gosh, they just keep planning completely. They don't care about identifying what their problems are. They don't care about how they are going to fix the problem. They just say, from day one, now we are going to work according to this practice. And I'm telling you, you have roughly 100% chance to fail if you skip this step. Number 5, standard versus custom. I think that was part of the reason why people failed with Agile intros and other intros, because I think we can say those companies would fail any kind of transformation anyway. I heard that most of them told me, you know, we implemented everything by the book. You know, I wrote up this example of the light bulb. We have over 10 different kind of sockets. And these dudes thought they could implement the same practice, the same way for all the softwares of the world. So I'd like to emphasize that try to customize what you have. Don't care about the book. Standards are good for defining communication standards. When you have a mobile phone and a radio station, it's very cool. But when you have a practice, try to figure out how to customize it. Otherwise, you have roughly 100% chance to fail, I'm telling you. So I think we have come to the end soon. And this 6 is going to be my addition to the Agile Manifesto. I say skills and experience over processes and tools. And probably it's a little bit provocative. I'm not saying, I don't want to say that forget about tools, forget about processes. What I try to say, you have 0 chance to design a perfect process, but which doesn't need any skilled employees or any skilled engineers. You know? You can't skip it. You can't replace skills and experience. You have 0 chance. You may have the best tools. You may have the best designed processes. Still, what you need, skilled and experienced people on your team, because they will be able to live with some loose, lightweight process, and they will be able to fill in the gaps. So we come to the end of the talk, and I would like to summarize what we had. So I would recommend you always try to figure out if the problem is really a tech problem. I think it's important. You may be able to mitigate part of the risk, but I think you also need to take care of the original problem. Change management, don't underestimate. If you are not planning carefully what you are going to change and how you are going to change, how you are going to implement it, you have a great chance to fail. Change company culture, not easy. I can tell you a couple of stories what I have heard. It's extremely difficult, I think. Change in realistic steps. So if you want to get to the land of the dream, keep it as a vision, you know? But be realistic, be honest to yourself, you know? Fix what's broken, customize ways of working, and I think it's important. Have talented and skilled people on your team. That makes you successful. So I would like to wish you happy bug hunting and kill them all.
Hasta la vista, baby. Hasta la vista, baby.
Great, thank you very much. And now let's head on to the Q&A section.
Oh, only one. That's cool. On the Agile challenges slide, isn't technical company culture and business research? No, it's not the same. What I'm trying to say, resistance to change is quite a human thing. Probably you know that you have many colleagues who don't like changes. And you have, for example, peoples, let's say, for example, managers, not only managers, who aren't really interested. I think it's a completely different story. When it comes to company culture, it's different. It has nothing to do with the fact that you don't like or don't want to change. That's basically your DNA. It can be many things, like, Swedish companies love to come to consensus, while Japanese companies prefer command and control style of management. I think it's different. In your opinion, what's the first step to introduce changes? I think the first step, I have said, first of all, figure out what's wrong. I think it's very important. And be honest to yourself. I think important thing to figure out what's wrong. I have seen so many cases when people were not able of what they would like to fix at all. They had some just rough ideas. Figure out what's wrong, develop a plan, a detailed plan, and be realistic and honest to yourself. It's going to take some time. If you would like to adopt what these guys are talking about, I think we can agree that you need to have some very advanced engineering culture. If you are struggling with, I showed you that picture about CMMI, if you are on the initial level, you are, let's say, a startup in their first year and you have ad hoc practices, I think there's no chance to implement those things what Tariq, Diony, and Jeff will talk about.